Okay, we're on the vibrate zone. So that's how we are. Okay. So what else? What are we discussing? The Ijesha Palace organization.
Yes.
Yeah, you haven't seen it.
No, that particular
long essay.
Yes, the long essay. No, I have not. I've written it down.
Okay. So it was, I mean, to give, I'm not ready to, but I know that there's one on the Palace organization that was done by Tony Falolai, no, by Abiodun Adejumo in 75. And the Ilesha Palace organization that was done in 1976.
So there's also a Palace
organization. That was by Abiodun Adejumo. Yeah. 75 long essay. Tony Falolai, so Ilesha Palace organization, that was 76 long essay. Okay. Let me ask Amo, will you want a second chance to rewrite your report?
Yes,
Should we give him a second chance?
yes, sir.
Because you're on too, you need a second chance, have you? Okay. No problem. I'm not a wicked man. So I'm a very adult. So don't think that I'm not easy. So which is the next one? Let's see. Who wrote on it for Mudake? That's you.
So before we move away from my side,
Okay.
mentioned that our PhD was the only one that followed.
No, I was just joking.
Okay, you are just joking. I just wanted to be sure that if I did not follow properly, so that you could correct me where I had gone wrong, so that I could correct it.
No, it wasn't the only one. But you can always look at look at what we are discussing and see how you can improve on.
Yes.
So, Fatai, where are we? You kept your report to, is this what we asked you to do? She's laughing. Or is she smiling? Which one now? Is this what we asked you to do? Right? First, we said interview one person. You interviewed how many? 3 of them. A 78-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 32-year-old youth leader. Okay? On the crisis. Now, all you gave us is just the interview, what they call it, transcripts. Right? Is that the pattern you're supposed to follow? Did you answer the question? No. No, answer yourself now. Did you answer the question? Which one did you answer? Speak out now. When you speak on the internet, now you are my friend. You can't talk. We asked you to do what? To conduct an interview with one informant. You went over syllabus, you did 3, and you didn't answer the questions. We asked specific questions. Did you do this? Did you do that? How did you go about it? How did you achieve it? But you didn't write a report. You just gave us a transcript. It's like saying, teacher, go and find the answer yourself. That's it now. I had a student, so that's what you did. Okay. So what do you do? Oh, that's why you are making a second chance for him. Okay, so you have your second chance. But you see that you've not answered the questions. You see, the instruction is part of the exam. Write an essay of 500 words. It's very clear. If you wrote 501, you have violated instruction. If you wrote 499, you are within the boundary. There's only one, it's only one plus. It's different from only one less. When we give instruction, it's meant to be carried out. Because that's what I want to judge in the script. When the accreditation people come, where is the guideline for marking the script? It's embedded in the question. Okay? So you know your own answer. So who is the last one? Okay. How did you do? Can you mark yourself straight? You do mark. How did you do? Yeah. Is that interview Dr. Kalu?
Yes, sir.
On phone?
No.
Or in his house in Lagos?
Please.
You want to be at
Victoria Land, yes.
Okay, so tell us your experience. And you do follow the pattern in answering the question?
Yes, sir. I think I did.
You think you did? Yes. Let's look at it. Summary of the interview.
Yes, sir.
Now, in his word, he said, were all this during the interview? Or the things he said in other interviews?
What he told me, I have the records, I have the video, I have everything. I went there with cameras.
I was going to ask, do video?
Yes, I went there with the cameras.
You said the person you interviewed did not allow you to.
She did not allow me to record.
That's what I'm talking
At a point, he told me to switch off the camera. For example, when he wanted to tell me the reason why the structural adjustment program failed, he told me that he don't want that because most of those individuals, many of them are still alive. So he don't want to be captured on camera. So and he explained to me. And he was reluctant initially because according to him, he has been misquoted quite a lot of time. In fact, it was true Colonel Bello Fadle that was able to, he was well convinced him from because he said he was not going to carry out any physical interview. So basically, that was about at least 90% of what he said was captured in the.
So, did you follow our pattern?
Yes, I do.
Can you see the pattern here?
Yes, I got the summary. What I did was I wrote the report, then I started with the
historical things that can be extracted from the interview process and challenges. So tell us about the process.
Yes, sir. When I wanted to initially I had my own before I even started the program. I wanted to do a research on analysis on how media reported the Second World War in Nigeria. But in the course of this course, I realized that I need to do something better. So now, when I was doing this assignment, I decided that it was going to serve as a foundation for whatever I was going to write. So that's why when I did a lot of research and I discovered that as far as history is concerned, much historical work has not been done on the structural adjustment program. Virtually all the scholars who are written on it are from social sciences. None of them are social science scholars. So I decided that I was going to do something on it. So in the course of research, I decided I would start from 1980 to 2003 for me to be able to look at the post-reform that was introduced by the not only the military government, also by the civilian administration. So I did that. Then I started shortlisting the people that I was going to interview, and I realized that for me to be able to get something meaningful, many of the people who were political actors at the time, they are still very much alive. And since I have contact with quite a number of them, so I decided to reach out. I reached out to Oba Olufalaye, So he told me that he was not available at the time for the interview, but he agreed to sit down with me in the one person was the one who recommended Dr. Kalu to me. So he gave me his contact. So when I reached out to him, he told me that he was not going to grant any interview, that he has said everything he wanted to say in his lifetime and has been misquoted in a number of times. So I started trying to get people that can convince him for me. So I was able to reach Onededo Fabula. So it was one who talked to him, then through whom I was able to get him. So then I had to leave Ondo to Lagos for the interview because the notice he gave me was very short, but I had to meet up. So I had to leave there. So on Friday, April 1st, the interview took place at his VI was.
Suppose he asked you to come to Anambra.
Oh, good.
So why are you complaining about going to Lagos?
No, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that the notice was short, but I just had to go. So
Now, does writing on an issue where the critical actors are still alive, what challenges does it present?
So the challenge, to me, from what I've seen so far, at least from the interview that I've conducted with him, so I realized that many of them that played major role in the implementation of that policy, they are still of the conviction that that's the best thing that could be done at that point in time. And I noticed that even in the interview, despite the fact that he agreed that there were a lot of issues and there were reasons why the program actually failed, he was still of the opinion that it was not a policy that was imposed on Nigeria. That unlike the written account of what some scholars have done, it was not that it was an homegrown policy. Because somebody like him, according to him, he has worked we grew up he started working with the World Bank. That's International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So he said from that, so it was sent to Korea. And that policy was introduced by Korea. And he explained what the structural adjustment, he said it was not new. That it only means that you have been doing something in this way. Now you need to adjust your system to accommodate this new system. That it worked very well in South Korea. That's why that was why when they returned to Nigeria, he said he was a commissioner in the old Imo State. He said when he returned there, so they started writing papers. So that the people that they brought on board, people like you mentioned, people like Professor, he said they used to call him a great Oje, Professor Aboyade. He said all of them that they were the scholars that these military officers they didn't know that they was, because many of them were writing based on their experience, what they've experienced in other countries. And so when they came on board, that they were the ones who introduced that policy. That when the policy was introduced, that it was not the IMF, according to him, it was not the IMF that was insisting that we had to get the loaf. In fact, the IMF had nothing to do with it because the IMF had a lot of resources. According to that, they have a lot of countries they want to serve. That at that point in time, they needed the resources from them. So that at the end of the day, the policy was implemented, but the government refused to accept the loan. That even at that point in time, that the whole agitation had embarrassed IMF to the point that they even decided that they were not even going to release the loan for Nigeria. But I could see that from what he told me, there was this bias in terms of how he defended the policy. And I was able to learn that if I'm going to interview people like Chief Olufale, for example, people like somebody like General Babangida, I can interview, I can have access to him. So if I'm going to, I already know that this will based on this primary interview that I realized that these people, they believe in what they implemented and they were ready to defend it. Despite the fact, so I need to now do a lot of research so that as they are defending it, the questions I will ask will be more deeper than what I asked Chief Kalu.
So key historical insights gained from the interview gained. What's wrong with the sentence?
So, that's why it was a typographical error, sir. It was a key historical insight gained from the interview.
Gained.
Yes, sir.
At least we'll try to answer the questions. So, what are your general impressions about going to conduct these interviews? What do you think? How does it read to you as a historian? Do you think you are a journalist? What? You are a journalist too. I mean, you're the one in the NGO world. You do reports for the NGO.
No, I do report for NGOs.
You work as what? So, my work. The one is 90 something now. What research is she doing again? Does she want to research to the grave? So obviously, there is always something for us to learn, to gain from this process. We want to be as practical as possible. Unfortunately, you did something on traditional institutions. You did something on contemporary subject, which is very contemporary, which all of us can relate to. And we can always, how much of the previous interviews that he granted did you read or did you follow?
Yes,
Because if you go to YouTube, there are so many interviews he granted which are on YouTube.
Yes.
And there are some magazines that he gave interviews to on these issues. How many of such things did you go through before you interviewed him?
Yes, I've been able to. I went through some, but not all. At least the
Because it
recent
will also
ones
help you to know if he contradicts himself at any point. If he has said something some time ago, which is changing his mind about, if you haven't read it before, you'll be able to confront him with it. But sir, you said this in this interview at this point. Is it that you now have a different perspective or new knowledge has come up? So you need also to know what he has said, especially as this is a contemporary thing and newspaper reports are there about what he has said. You go to YouTube, you'll find so many interviews he has conducted. But there's hardly anything we are doing that I don't have something on YouTube. But if you click Elisha Palace on YouTube, you find something. I'm almost sure. I've never done it before, but I'm sure you'll find something. There's always something you can get. So whatever knowledge you can get from anywhere, let's try to. And then let's see how it matches, how it correlates or corroborates what you already know, or our Zoom knowledge, or how it challenges them. It's very important. So let's, any general question, let's close the session and then let's quickly do some, yeah, look there for Shaitan. Has anybody done anything on Madam Tinubu? Not a bit Tinubu.
Yes.
Eh? Have you done anything on Madam Tinubu? Okay. Well, today's session is on thematic and comparative history. And Akode is going to give us a seminar. Next semester, I'm not going to give you anything. You just do your seminar, we'll discuss. So don't. And unfortunately, I have two classes with you next semester. So, well, let me tell you the good thing about it. The course of historiography, the problems and issues in African historiography. Have you done anything on historiography in the first semester? No historiography. It's okay. So why are they going to African historiography straight? Why are not done anything historiography? Okay. I'm supposed to take you advanced philosophy of history and problems and issues in African historiography. And it's more of practical things we're going to be discussing. We are going to have presentations, but what I was going to tell you was my first published paper as an academic staff was the essay I presented in my historiography class, oral tradition. It's not methods of historical research, it's on historiography, that is the history of history. How did we start writing history? I mean, it's very straightforward. So what are the traces, what are the stages of writing African history? Oral tradition, colonial records, records of the churches, the big Christian missions, Arabic historiography, all of those. Those are the various stages of historiography. And what are the challenges you've had over the years? So it's not, you're going to work. You don't want to work. You can opt out. Okay. But let's look at the simple one. I'll just give some remarks. It won't be as long as I used to on this one, so that there are things he has said that he's going to cover, and there are things that he has omitted. But like I said, there's no straightforward, this is the total answer. No. Everything is subject to improvement. Okay. We have, where are we? Thematic and comparative approaches. Let me rush through just to take us through some of the things. So, what are we trying to do? One, try to understand the nature and significance of thematic and comparative approaches in historical research. If you say it's thematic, what are we saying? What does it refer to? If you say it's comparative, what does it refer to? As different from multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary, because these are all areas you need to know the differences of what we're talking about. So what is the nature, what's the nature of thematic approach, comparative approach? Okay. Then what are the key things commonly studied in history using these two approaches? And you should be able to answer the questions yourself. What do you think, what will you consider a thematic subject that has been approached by past scholars? And is your work thematic? Is it narrative? Is it chronological? Is it comparative? Because even you yourself, your own study, the research you want to carry out, is it thematic? Is it comparative? Is it chronological? Is it pure story? Okay. There's nothing wrong with writing pure story. That's what work as a historian. There are other methodological frameworks for conducting these things, and then advantages and limitations. I'm not even sure I did that. And then how do you apply this approach to historical analysis through case studies? Because you should be able to, let's take a topic. We are coming to it. We'll just be running through back and forth on this issue. Take, for instance, the COVID-19 pandemic. For somebody who is in medical or health history, there are quite a number of things you want to look at. How do we respond to pandemics in our society? How do we respond to crisis in the society? How does the government respond to pandemics? How do we respond to vaccines, for instance? How did we respond to it in Nigeria? Why was it that the white man thought that the pandemic will kill almost all of us in Nigeria? And we survived, and in a gallant way, which the death rates in Nigeria is far less than have been expected. Why? Because they say the people that have been eating sawdust when they were growing up, but those are pedestrian analysis. because nobody wants to die in Nigeria. So when they say put on mask, in fact, people do double masking. But for you as a historian, how do we respond to pandemics? How did we respond in the past? Is that a thematic issue or is it a comparative? It can be both. Okay. So how do you engage with thematic issues? And sometimes in a comparative way, it can be done. Okay. But many times thematic issues are things that we do over a period of time. You take, okay, we want to look at issue of taxation. Okay. You are looking at taxation as a theme, but you look at how it was adopted, how the people respond to it, the about tax riots. All these are things that you want to look at over. How did we accept? So when we brought in VAT, how did it? I think it was Kalu that introduced VAT or started it. How did we react to it? All of those things you can look at it both thematically across period or comparatively. How did we respond to it in Nigeria? How did we react to it in Ghana? Who accepted it? Who embraced it? How did they respond? Were there riots? Were there crises in the society? So all of these things you can always. So we look at the introduction, define it, key features, why thematic and comparative history. How do you combine the two, which is what I've done already. So you can jump into it and get there. Methodological considerations, challenges and critical considerations, clinical remarks. So let me see. What's thematic history? Who wants to? What is it? What is thematic approach? What is thematic history? Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let me in my own word. We can say thematic history is when we organize historical study around maybe a topic,
Okay.
around the topic or a particular theme, instead of following a strict chronological order.
Yeah. When you pick a theme rather than straightforward narration. I mean, we are Christians. You read the Bible. You do the Bible in a year, right? Sometimes you do Bible in a year. What are the various approaches? You can do Genesis to Revelation. You can also do chronological, in which they take the events as they happened. So you pick, you take Genesis, you go to chapter 30, then you go to Job. Okay? Because the events of Job happened before the call of Abraham. So, but somebody who is doing Genesis to Revelation, will go, but it depends on your approach to the reading. So, thematic does not have to follow, what do you call it? The chronology. Okay? What theme can we pick out from the scriptures that we can look at how it was? Let's say, let's take the case of obedience. Let's say obedience is a theme. How did they obey? How did people respond to commands of God? Okay. Then you can look at Abraham, his obedience. You can look at what do you call it? Saul, his disobedience. You can look at Paul, Saul when he was on the way to Damascus. People responded to the commandments of God differently. This right here. So some people will obey, and so if you say obedience in the scriptures, it's not something you can do as in 10 million BC. Adam was born. Who's asking you that question? I hope you understand the analogy.
Yes.
So you can take a theme and then see how it has unfolded over the years. It's not exactly chronological, but you are looking at the thematic approach from. Okay, so what is comparative? It will help us to quickly finish the session today. So, what's comparative history?
The comparative, I guess, by the word comparative.
Yeah.
To put history side by side and make an analysis of how each of the historical records relates to each other.
That's Ogmagba, but that's not the. Yes, what is comparative? Yeah.
Comparative is when you try to find from the word compare.
Yeah.
Trying to compare maybe the similarities and differences.
Yeah. You can be looking at comparison in terms of similarities. You can be looking at it in terms of differences. Those are critical distinctions. But sometimes what we are looking at is how did they react to a particular issue based on the same premises. Okay. Let's look at what do you call it? First subsidy. How did the progressives receive first subsidy over the years? Sorry, I don't know. It's calling things. Hello? Hello? Hello, yeah, who is this? Yeah, who is? Oh, can you give me a couple of minutes or let me ask the manager to call you? I'm in a meeting, I'm in a class. No, it's okay. It's okay. No, you don't be sorry. You can't be sorry. You shouldn't be sorry. No, 0706. Yeah, 135, 35. Yeah, you can call that number. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So, comparative. That how do progressives, how do they respond to attempts to remove fuel subsidy when they are in opposition and when they are in government? No, they are two different. It's the same issue. So you have Tinubu leading the protest in 2012 at the Freedom Park in Lagos. And he getting to office and removing, and no progressive has raised a finger. What accounts for it? So you can look at the same issue under different epochs, the same kind of people, the so-called progressives, the so-called conservatives. What defines their response? So when you take comparative history, it's to look at the objective realities that define the environment and see how they responded at different times. Let's look at pandemics. We had the Ebola pandemic, we had the COVID-19 pandemic, the same society in Nigeria, and we survived the two, right? You can ask yourself, how did we cope with those? So you are looking at how did the society respond? How did the leaders respond? How did the government respond? How did the people even respond to their government? Did they trust the government enough? How did the medical services respond? Am I making some sense to that? So, so these are things that you can see and document. So when you say it's comparative, it could be similarities, it could be differences, and it could be both. Both. But you look at the objective reality, the factors that were similar to all of them. Some promise that when they remove subsidy, they will put the money that is gained in social amenities for the society. Did the people trust them to do it? But they just said, they'll come to start line again. No, these are practical things. So, but when you are doing comparative history, it's not just to look at the response, but also the fundamental conditions that were uniform or that were different, that allow for the reactions of the society. Can we close the session? Not yet. Okay. So comparative involves comparing two or more cases to identify similarities, differences, and broader patterns. Look at that. I don't have my. Yeah. Look, the broader patterns there. So similarities, differences, and broader patterns. Things that need to. Thematic history organized around specific theme, concept or process rather than a single chronological narrative or single polity. And then examples: urbanization, migration, gender, labor movement, environmental change, taxation system. All of these are things that you can relate to. So what are the key features of thematic history? One, focus scope, because it's not everything. You pick a theme in the history of the society. It's focused. It's not, you are not doing history of Nigeria, 1800 to 1900. War and peace in Yoruba land. Very straight. If you pick Ekiti Parapọ̀ War, it's part of Nigerian history, isn't it? But it's a very specific theme we're looking at. War in African history is a theme. So you can look at the war in Zimbabwe, war in Nigeria, war in Nigeria. These are all wars in different. There is a project I was going to do with a friend of mine, who is a professor of war studies in England. Another look at war in African history. So the wars of liberation, the wars of the guerrilla wars, the wars in ancient times, the Yoruba civil wars, the Bantu wars. So all of these are wars, different kinds of wars at different times in the history of the continent. So then interdisciplinarity, that is, it goes beyond. When it is thematic, then you have the advantage of being able to call on sociology, call on philosophy, call on anthropology, call on archaeology to see how it contributes to understanding that particular theme. So you are looking at the Nigerian Civil War, who is one writing on the Civil War. You look at it from the point of view of the historian, sociologist, the man in religion. We had the church sexton in my town, Baba Kupa, who was an Igbo man. Okay, so faith values. How did the church protect him? Because we kept him safe throughout. Same thing for the woman who had a clinic, Mrs. Umezurike. Okay, an Igbo woman who had an hospital in our town. The woman was protected and is protected throughout the war, despite the fact that there are soldiers in our house. Nothing happened to them. So you can look at the Civil War from that kind of perspective, from faith values, how people protected from communal values, different. So the discipline there is problem-oriented and comparative within team. Now, even like I said, even your thematic approach can be comparative. You pick the theme, then look at it at different. Let's look at pandemics. Pandemics is a thematic thing. We can look at how it was handled in terms of the pandemic, whether I want to look at COVID-19, I want to look at the Ebola, I want to look at, what was this, the rat one? Yeah, you know all of these things now. So how did we respond to each of those pandemics? One is pandemic because it's thematic because we're looking at pandemics. And it's thematic because we're looking at health issues, but it's comparative because we're looking at different kinds of pandemics. Am I?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's, so advantages of course, depth of insight, because now it's a deeper work for you. And then we're also able to do theoretical engagements, provide photograph or test and refine. If the government provides money, it's easier to undo pandemics. That's a theory. You can test the hypothesis. So, did they provide money for Ebola? Yes. They provide money for COVID-19? No. So you can look at the various. The comparative history we've already discussed, we already defined, looking at two or more societies, regions, and periods to uncover both similarities and differences. Its goal is to explain why historical processes unfolded divergently or convergently across contexts. Why did it happen this way? How come that we came to the same answer, or why did they react differently? So, what are the key features? Systematic comparison, that is looking at clear variables, look at the various stages. Case selection logic. How do you come about deciding your what do you call it, the case studies? Because it's very important. Are you looking at ones that are similar or those that are dissimilar? Okay. So when you're looking at alike systems to isolate the key variables, or the most different systems to look at divergent cases. So case selection logic, these are the features. Then synchronic or diachronic. What is synchronic? Don't imagine, but what is synchronic? What is synchronic? And what is diachronic? You do not. Chief, what is synchronic?
What's synchronic yes, just from the word synchronized.
Yes.
It's basically aligning of issues of history.
Yes. And diachronic.
If that would be the opposite.
What is opposite?
If it's I don't know if diachronic is the opposite word for synchronic.
So now, when you say synchronic, that means it's happening at the same time. You can see diachronic is at diverse time. So you can't, when you, how do I put it now? When I say that the exam is going to be synchronous, all of you are going to write it at the same time. If it's diachronic, that is, you can go there and take it when you want. Okay? So I put the question online, I can access it at any time. So synchronous and diachronous. So one that is diachronous and achronous, it's one that you go there when you want, but you have the same number of hours. So you can start your own 1 hour from at 2 p.m., can start your own at 4 p.m., as long as you only spend 1 hour. Okay. So now let's go back. So let me see, where were we? Yeah. May compare society at the same moment in time, synchronically, or trace similar processes across different periods. Okay. So look at, like we said, how did we respond to the first subsidy in 2012 and in 2022? Okay, so we are looking at different periods, but you can then look at, how did you do it at this time? Now, advantages, explanatory power, FC to test and framework. So these are things that, so why do we need, why thematic and comparative history? It has to big boundaries. Because it doesn't, there's no issue that is done that is limited to a particular region, a particular epoch, a particular era. Everything, history is dynamic. So I can't write history of Ipetumodu without referring to a place like Ife. You can't write the history of Ife or Ilesha without writing the history of the adjoining. So the Benin man who said they collected their crown from Ife. So there is a link between everybody. So it helps us to break the boundaries in terms of regions, in terms of societies, in terms of people, period. Okay, so everything, there's this unfolding dynamic that helps us. So it allows us for deep exploration of the topic, uncovering connection and obvious in traditional narratives. So when you look at the thematic analysis, it helps you to look beyond the immediate, to go to things, epochs, topics, subtopics, sub-themes that are not ordinarily covered when it's a straightforward narrative of history. Comparative method helps in testing hypotheses and avoiding overgeneralization. You ask questions, how did it happen in different contexts? So, helping to break boundaries. Number two, uncovering hidden patterns. Okay. Things like empire, resistance, environmental change, act as lenses to analyze continuities and ruptures, often obscured by national histories. Hidden patterns that ordinarily will not come out in your discussion, in your analysis. Comparative history will help you to get them out. Helps you to test hypotheses. So is industrialization inherently linked to urbanization? It's a question that you may want to ask. How do pandemics reshape societies differently in Europe versus Africa? When you look at the bubonic plague, compare with our own response to COVID. How did they respond in Europe? How did they respond in Africa? When you look at even COVID-19, how did they respond in the US and how did they respond in Nigeria? How come 300,000 plus died in the US and probably less than 1,000 died in Nigeria? Limited mostly to rich people. Yeah. Those are the people that went to collect it from abroad. So most of the people that died in COVID-19 are people that were rich, of influence in society. And that's why we knew them.
So was it because they contracted from abroad?
Because of the kind of people they move with. I had COVID about 5 times. Yeah.
Why?
I had about 5 times. Because of the circle in which you are moving, the exposure is higher than the woman who hasn't gone anywhere. Doesn't know the. It is we that want to give it to them. Yeah. Because we're the one who imported it. It came from abroad. Did the poor man in London Road now did he go to abroad? No. We are talking practical things now. You are going to say something.
Yes, sir. I think what I observed too is that I think most of the people who died in Nigeria at the time, many of them actually had underlying health issues.
Yes.
Because there are at least even people who were not that rich than that, but I know that they actually had
underlying
issues.
issues.
Everybody had contacted this at that time,
but
people survived. Well, at that time, they told us that once you cannot spell anything, you lost it.
Something's wrong.
A lot of people actually had that. Somebody like me, I was tested positive twice, and I know a lot of people who were tested positive, but they survived it. It's just
they survived it because the comorbidities were not present in them. I was asthmatic. So I'm prone to it. If I contact it, it's likely to affect me. Okay. But the woman in the market, some don't even believe there was anything like COVID.
Somebody about this. Somebody is struggling to
They don't even believe that it existed. That is a government who is stealing money. That they're just using it to steal money. So they don't even believe. So when and unfortunately there was this incident in Kano when people were dying, we thought it was COVID. It wasn't COVID.
It wasn't.
So now tell those people that it's COVID, they will tell you there's nothing like COVID. But they decided that what they had was not COVID. Our time is
So how would that history be written? Especially the history of
that period.
Yeah, that period. How would it be written?
Well, you're already writing it. Already writing it because people are documenting their experiences. Look at Kiari, the chief of staff to the president.
Yes. Came from abroad.
Got it from Germany. He had comorbidity. He died. Within a couple of he was dead. And people are rejoicing.
Yes.
It tells you something. Thank God he's dead. And I said, Egbami, somebody is dead. You are thanking God. When it's not Abacha. But it tells you the popular perception of government and those in government and those who are running the government for you. It shows that people didn't have trust in government. Yeah. So that's the history. It's the history being written already. It's not going to be so the history of COVID in Nigeria. No. There will be other things because from the perspective of the health practitioner, there's a lot of lessons to be learned. When this girl, Adadevo, died of Ebola, it shows that some people are committed to their work. So the history is not, it's not so much about the abstract, but how it affected individual lives, how it touched people, how it affected generations. These are all part of the history that when you are writing, it may not even be where you start. There are things you will discover as you go along. That's the problem with history, particularly living history like contemporary works, where you just find things that you are not expecting to find in society. So let's conclude. What slide am I? 12. Let's say about 5 or 6. Global and transnational perspectives, these are things that help you to. So, how do you combine thematic and comparative approaches? This is what you should concentrate on. How do you combine the two? Number one, choose your theme. Because when you pick a theme, you can now look at it both thematically and comparatively. Choose a theme, late independence movements. In terms of definition, what would you consider late independence movements? Would it be the independent movement of the 1980s, late 70s, Angola, Mozambique, Namibia, Zimbabwe, South Africa? Or are you looking at late independent movement in terms of the late 60s, the late 50s, those who didn't join the bandwagon early enough? Okay? I mean, when Egypt got independence in 56, I have Ghana in 57, Nigeria in 1960, and the Francophones not until late 1960. Which one is your late independence movement? And how do you compare late independent movements in Francophone countries, late independent movements in... So they are both late independence movements, we can then do a comparative at the same time. And it's very good, very interesting, because you can then look at the themes across regions, across epochs, across societies. Then select your cases. Angola, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Caribbean. And then, so you can then look at the theme of late independence and can then look at it comparatively in those 3 countries. Comparative doesn't have to stop with 2, remember. It could be 2 or more. Okay? Then define your variables. What are the things you want to examine? Role of guerrilla movements, role of trade unions. How the trade unions in a place like South Africa, how did they affect the independence movement compared with the trade union movement, say for instance in Nigeria in the 40s and 50s? But we are picking late independence movement. So the trade unions in Angola or Zimbabwe, how did they compare with the trade unions in South Africa, where eventually a trade union leader is now the current president, because they were very, very prominent in the independence movements? Okay? then trace across time and space. So these are a way of combining the two. What you are saying, right?
So
That's why it's better.
so
Yeah, I'm not sure that I want to put on YouTube.
So, sir, from what I'm seeing,
Yeah.
it means the adoption of comparative approach and thematic doesn't have to be between two entities. It can even be within a chosen topic.
Yeah.
Like, for example, from what I'm seeing now, if I want to look at the structure, the adoption of structural adjustment program, it affected, it means I have to compare how the people get arrived at that point. It means from 1970s or early 70s or right from when we implemented the first or second national development plan, then I will have to compare.
Yeah, but that will not be structural adjustment plan. That will be economy restructuring.
Okay.
Because the structural adjustment plan was very, very specific to 1986 and after. But we have been working on our economy since the 50s. Okay? And our national development plans, which unfortunately we are forgetting about. Now we are talking about medium-term economy framework, long term. And you're having the Agenda 2020, Agenda. All of them never worked. Vision 2010. Vision came and died. Vision 2020, the vision became blind. Now they made it so long, Vision 2050, so that half of them will have died before that time. So you can look at, so the structural adjustment plan is that will be an element of economy restructuring or responding to economic crisis. Okay? And then you look at the period of the oil boom in the 70s, how did we mismanage ourselves? So you can look at, yes, it's comparative, yeah. And it's thematic and it's comparative at the same time. And it's the same society, the same country.
Not between two entities, but
it's the same
society.
Yeah.
But that's
how did we respond across time? Yeah. Yes, excellent. That's it. Across time. Time and space. The same country, the same issue, the same economy. How did we react? How did we respond? Yeah. And then that's why you can put in the role of leadership as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Because that's actually part of the problem. When Gowan said our problem is not money,
but how to spend it.
That same year, Nigeria is useless sometimes. Aminu Kano, as Federal Commissioner for Health, went to UCH. He said there was no money for the hospital. Yeah, the head of state said the problem was 1973. They don't know how to spend money, but we had hospitals that needed money and they couldn't. Sad. No one was reflecting with Professor Kikwe. No one was shaking his head. Yes. He might go on as a PhD student in England when he was finishing his when he was doing his medical program in UK.
Maybe the warning.
No. That was when Gowan was a soldier. Was a student at the Sandust. Yeah, was still a student. Was still a student soldier. A military student. Yeah. He had been commissioned. They went to Sandust for further training. We met him there at that time. That was when they became friends. So when Gowan became head of state, he was one of his advisors. Leadership is a problem as well.
It's going to be for a long time.
Well, I think talk now.
I think when Shiba is always acting is a little bit better when Mari is out of the country, and when Shiba is it's better, maybe it's because professor and this.
It has nothing to do with being a professor. It has a lot to do with understanding what you want to do as a leader.
The propensity to understand too comes from a trained mind, a knowledgeable mind. So which a professor possesses, as opposed
which professor possesses?
Because a professor has gone through the full training.
It's not because he's a professor. It's because he has learned himself to learning. And he's ready to think, yeah. There are many professors who cannot think. Sorry. You know, when there is an article which I don't know if it's still on chemist door. So you want to do a PhD. That when you start your PhD thesis, you look at your professor as God. They begin to realize that he doesn't even know anything about what you are doing. They begin to lose respect for him. It happens. Because there's a little that you know. It's not because he's a professor. It's because he has learned himself to learn it. But then that kind of person doesn't survive for politics. Yes. That's right. We should be begging to be president of this country. We should be begging him.
Who?
Osunbaju.
Yes. I agree.
Nigeria is always hybrid.
It's in Nigeria that you have a standard 6 headmaster as president. And you have Alex Ekweme, a PhD, 2 PhD holder.
That's totally good. That's the best of it.
And you have our Buhari that we have never seen his military certificates being president and Osunbaju professor.
Professor
that's
is
president.
So even more
Only in
didn't have
Nigeria.
SS.
Eh?
It was rumor didn't have
They
SS.
didn't have.
Yeah, that's that he didn't pass because they can't find the record in
No record.
the military. They couldn't find the certificate in the military record.
Taken from history.
But that's not the subject of our discussion.
No, it's not. We're just talking about.
That's why I prefer online meetings. You can't have time for gossip. Which is what we are doing now. So how do we integrate? We discuss integrating the two. They can complement themselves and you can also integrate it with other methods. So sociology, anthropology, digital history, all of these things we can implement. I think we should finish in a minute. Let's look at methodological considerations. Now, let's look at the two, thematic history and comparative history. This is very important. Under thematic history, what is the primary question? How did X develop over time and across regions? That's the thematic history. So you pick a topic. How did it develop? How did obedience develop over time and regions? Okay. But if it's comparative history, the primary question is why? Do you understand the difference?
Yes.
One is how. The other is why did it manifest differently or similarly over time and region in A and B or even C. Okay. Why was it different? How did it happen? Why did it happen differently? Then the case study selection, of course, is driven by the relevance with the theme and it's flexible if it's systematic. For comparative history, it's driven by logic, selection logic, analytical knowledge. We want to look at, is it the most similar or is it the most different? So when we say a comparative study of the grace of God in Islam and Christianity. Do you understand it? So what is the difference? What is the similarity? Okay. We are looking at why as different from how. We are looking at the thematic relevance as well as the logic of choice. Which one is similar? Which one is different? So then number 3 is data and sources. Okay. Data for thematic is wide-ranging, archives, quantitative, data sets, oral history. Everything you have done the last how many weeks? For comparative history, of course, comparable sources, comparable sources. So if you pick newspaper articles, it should be able to apply to all of them. You can read about it. How did they report X in 2011 and in 2019? The theoretical frame, often thematic theories, gender theories, Marxist theories, social science models. So these are the issues. We've done this diachronic comparison, right?
Yes, sir.
Across time, across period, same time, across time. Types of comparison could be micro, look at specific studies, or could be macro, the larger society. This should be where we're going to finish. What are the challenges? Please avoid oversimplification. Things are not that simple. If you are not careful, comparative history can lead you to oversimplification. It's not handled carefully. Sometimes, they say, flatten complexity. Okay? Just make it seem as if it's the same thing you are studying. It's not that easy. How do you balance generalization with attention to specificity? When you do comparative work, you must be able to balance generalization, the things that apply in general to the ones that are specific, the local specificity. But he said, and this example I picked up online, say, how do you compare slavery in Asian Rome and slavery in 19th century America? Are they the same? Slavery in Asian Rome. No, there is slavery in the Bible.
Yes.
In the Bible.
Yes.
Is it the same thing as slavery we had in Africa?
So it's only when we want to really break them down. Slavery
It's slavery.
it's different.
The
Practice different.
You see, we need to be very careful because then you get sucked into the Eurocentric approach that we already had slaves in Africa before they came for us. The slavery we had in Africa is not the same as the slavery that we took our people to go and do in Europe and Americas. We are not carrying our people, lining them up like sardines on the way to Europe, on the way to America, on the way to the Caribbeans. No. So when they talk about slavery, the slavery of Efucheta and Iwura is not the same as the slavery of going to America, where they had absolutely no right. But the white man will tell you that all they did was just to collect them that already have the institution of slavery in this place.
That's what I'm saying.
But the institution of slavery is not the institution of slavery. Don't let us confuse.
Yes, sir. What is the end reason of slavery?
Now, if you are owing somebody money, you can go up, end up in slavery.
Warfare. Without carrying as slavery.
But they treated them as such. They had no. Some of them are sold off.
The warfare. Because the warfare.
It's not the only slave. Eru.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. That if we are doing the market Eru and the warfare will go as slave for a period
of time, and he gets his freedom. But also in the scriptures, the year of Jubilee, he must release those who are enslaved. All those who are owing you money that have taken as slaves, who must be released in the year of Jubilee.
Okay, in the biblical times. But in African times, pre-colonial slavery, while we practice.
Now, you are the chief now. Tell us the kind of slavery you are practicing in the palace. Not a chief then.
The slave they do achieve from maybe 2 kingdom folks and they have slaves. They don't used to use them as slaves.
Exactly. And then they subject them to labor.
Yes,
forced labor.
Yes. And they will not accord them any rights.
Maybe some of you should do something on slavery for your PCCs. And let's see. Any new thing you come.
So what I plan to write on it, there's no way I can avoid it.
There are palace slaves.
Yes.
Are they slaves in the context of the white man's slavery?
Well, they're very similar, sir. And our own is ours was probably even worse because those slaves, if they had any traditional matter to do that, they will kill them. They will offer them as sacrifices. They had no rights.
Well, even those that were not slaves were kidnapped. Even those that were not slaves were kidnapped and killed.
Yes.
It's not that they had easy access to those ones. There are people that were not slaves that were sacrificed.
Yes. And there were slaves that were raised for the purpose of offering them
as sacrifice to gods.
So they were in the lineage of slaves. They are regarded as slaves. So our slavery and the slavery in you were talking about methodology. If you allow,
but that one was it really slavery?
Which one?
The one where they raise people as food for the gods.
Yes, because they will use them to do all the labor work without any compassion. And in the end, they will still offer them as sacrifices. In Europe, it's only the process of transporting them from here to there. When they get there, they put them on the farms and they use them for labor and they maltreat them. Some are killed for even as games. So yeah, there are a lot of similarities.
Maybe you should do your work on similarities or
There's no way I cannot avoid it. This research work.
So, second challenge, source limitation. Let's finish so that he can give his own talk. And it's already, what's the time now?
Source limitations.
4. 4. Ah, 4 has already clocked. Yes. Okay. Okay. We spent extra time today. Source limitations, part of the problem. You get this on the YouTube. The ethics of representation. Who defines the themes? Who selects the cases? And what are the factors that define the selection? Decolonizing comparison means questioning whose narratives dominate and why. Because sometimes, like I said earlier, sometimes we accrue to the narratives of the white man in the process, which is not supposed to be. Risk of presentism. What does that suggest to you? You're already reading it. Yes.
Yeah, even as I'm reading it. Okay.
Looking at the past.
Yes. We actually did something like that in our, yes.
And just like you said, because I'm only seeing the
look at the light, look at the press past in the light of the and it's very risky because you can then begin to judge with a different perspective what happened at that time, which is very risky. And it's possible because you are looking at theme, you are looking at comparisons and all that.
So what's a typical example of what may have happened in the past that we do to this lesson?
Now, okay, even let's take your first subsidy. We want to critique it. You are looking at your suffering now to determine how they should have done it in the past. Sometimes we look at the current situation to judge what happened in the past. I will say, oh, they are wicked. They are wicked to them. But at that time, it wasn't wickedness. It wasn't evil by their own definition. It's not that we're thinking that it is evil. Take the slavery, for instance. Those who practiced it did not see it as evil. They just saw it as tradition. But now it's no longer tradition. It's evil. So when Mary Slessor came and stopped people from sacrificing twins, at that time, it was to advantage that she used the eyes of the present to determine the past, that what they were doing was wrong. Now we can see that what she did was right. But at that time, those who have killed her herself for stopping them from killing twins, I'm sure there will be many of them who would have prefer to kill her for stopping them from killing their twins. Because they saw twins as what? As if, not knowing that it's the same mind that produced the twin. So there are many things that you can judge the past from the lenses of the present, which is not good enough for us. And then avoiding cultural bias and anachronism. So you begin to ask yourself, you judge your culture with your present perspective. The people are bush, they are barbaric. The Oro festival, they can't come out. But at the time they started, it wasn't like that. So we have your own biases, present biases to judge past misconduct. Let's summarize. Thematic and comparative approach have potential transformative effects in historical research. The truth is, it can also help us to dig deeper, particularly when you take a theme that you want to look at over the years. They allow the researchers to ask new questions, challenge Eurocentric narratives, and engage with diverse perspectives. And they encourage researchers to think critically beyond chronological. You see, the typical historian, the Obakwaba historian, is looking more at dates. 1960 to 63, 1960 to 65, 1965 to 67, 1967 to 70. You know, but when you are looking at comparisons, you avoid that kind of is it petty? Petty thinking. You look at it beyond the straightforward narratives. Those are things that we need. I like thematic history because it's different from chronology. History of Origo from 1900 to 1980. So what? But if you say Egungun festival in Origo, pre-colonial to present, let's look at how they've worshipped, how they've observed the practice over the years, what has been different, what is different now, what has been done differently over the years. That makes some sense. Look at it from different perspectives rather than just straightforward storytelling. So those are the issues. It's just to ginger your thinking. So when you go to read on these issues, you're able to tell us more and better, address it better. And remember what we said when we started this course. The skills we are acquiring is not just for the historian. It can help you as a journalist, it can help you as a researcher, it can help you as an administrator. As an administrator, you write minutes, you write notes, all of those skills are useful for you to be able to. So it's not just for now, it's also for the future. So let me stop there. I've talked too much, sir. Yes. Questions, comments? Questions?
Well, sir, but not to you. I don't have questions, but it's comments.
Yeah, which is good.
My comments basically is that this particular course, sir, has shown me a lot of light in the way that I will use to approach research. So again, in the beginning of this lecture, I remember the very first class, you asked me why I researched this conclusion of class. And I told you, basically, it's because I want to write I want to publish and work on research on transgender institutions in global land, emphasis on the channel. And this, every topic of, especially some institutions that we have given us in these classrooms, has shown me clearly how to really navigate that process. So that's probably very, very useful. It's just for me and to support what everybody is in the class has concerned. It's not that because we're here, and I think it's appropriate for us to also, when we see something that we are happy with. And as my other colleagues have said, I was very happy with what the manner and the way and the technologies that have employed in taking this class. It's not that we told ourselves or what to say, or whether we should come here to come and make you or whatever. But that is truly what each and every individual feels about this course. We are taking 5 classes, and I don't take any of those 5 classes compared to this particular class. So thank you very much for the effort that you put into this methodology that you employed to take us through this. I'm very appreciative of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's listen to Akobe, right? Oh, you don't want to? It's the same thing we have done for everybody now.
Yes, I know. It's
Be afraid.
something like that.
Something like that. No, don't be afraid though. Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down. This is not if you want to stand up to teach us, fine. Yeah,
No,
it's not. Yeah.
I'm going to be very short because time out. Most of the things that I have already learned the past few years. So, the first thing goes definition of thematic approach. Thematic approaches, the method of writing is involves analyzing and interpreting historical event process and being through a specific. Like you said earlier, thematic approach focused on the particular something. It's not as if it's going very broad. Thematic approach focuses on specific things such as like gender, it's like the economics, like the politics, under their development and impacts over times. So thematic approaches are from characteristics like one, narrow focus. Thematic approach the focus is very narrow because it's focusing on a particular thing. So it's narrow and thematic approach has an in-depth analysis. At least when using a thematic approach in writing these pages and analyzing it goes more deeper based on the theme. That is, it's focusing on a particular thing. It's not.
Okay. Let's interrogate what you just said. You said it's narrow, right? Suppose I use the word focused. Because once you pick the theme, it's thematic. It cannot be general, it cannot be broad. So I would prefer to use focused rather than narrow. Because narrow is negative connotation. Focus is more positive. So let's look at it in a more positive way rather than I don't know whether I make some sense.
Yes.
I'm not trying to disrupt your thinking, but be careful how you project it so that you don't sound as if you are condemning the work. Narrow is, this guy is a narrow thinker, but he doesn't think. Yeah. But when you say is focused, is deep. Yeah. Okay. Continue.
Turning interpretive focus. Thematic approach is very, very interpretive.
Yeah.
And thirdly, fourthly, thematic approach is multidisciplinary. Its approach draws insight of data from multiple disciplines like sociology, anthropology, and then economics. So moving to the next subtopic, the thematic approaches has some limitations. One, interpretive subjectivity. Thematic approaches have limitations like interpretive subjectivity. A key limit of thematic analysis lies in interpretive nature, where the identification analysis seems heavily rely on researchers' perspective. Secondly, it's difficult in addressing complex data. As is when using thematic approaches, very, very difficult when you use thematic approach to analyze the complex data. And thirdly, thematic approach can be difficult for beginners when using thematic approach practically. And fourthly is limited contextualization.
For thematic,
Yes.
do you agree that it's limited contextualization?
Because it might be neglecting other parts,
Okay.
other parts. Yeah. So moving on to the comparative approach. Comparative approach in the method of writing history involves analyzing and contrasting historical effects, processes and phenomena across different societies, cultures, regions, and time periods. These approaches help historians to identify similarities and differences, understand the unique characteristics of each case, and develop more contextualized explanations of historical phenomena. Moving to the characteristics of comparative approach. One, identification of similarities and differences. According to the definitions itself, comparative approach has the characteristics of identifying the similarities and differences. Secondly, avoid oversimplification. Comparative approaches avoid being oversimplifying when using the method of comparative approach in writing history. And thirdly, comparative approach has a character of using primary and secondary sources. Primary sources like it might be images, artifacts, and secondary sources might be scholar articles or books. And lastly, interpretation and analysis. When comparative approaches have the characteristics of interpreting and analyzing when we are using comparative approach to compare similarities and differences. So I'll move to the limitations of my comparative approach. One is cultural and textual differences. That is, when using comparative approach, it might be difficult to get a topic, the two topics that can be compared together when using comparative.
Take it again.
Comparative approach has limitations of cultural and contextual differences. That is, when selecting a topic, it might be difficult to select the topic that can be compared based on the similarities and differences.
Well, your choice of topic is yours.
So,
The choice of topic
yes,
is done by the scholar.
yes.
So how will you choose something that you cannot compare if you want to do comparative history? Understand what I'm saying? You cannot box yourself into a corner by picking a topic that does not lend itself to comparative methodology. So there's no need crucifying comparative approach. That there are topics that do not lend themselves to comparative method because you are the selector of that topic. So why did you pick a topic that cannot be compared. It doesn't make any sense to you. So it's the choice of the scholar to determine what to write on. And if you choose to write a comparative history with a topic that doesn't lend itself to the comparative method, then it's your fault, not the fault of the subject. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes.
So yes. So secondly, the limitation of comparative approach
So go ahead. Just wanted to go ahead.
is the challenges in data availability and reliability. I think this means when using comparative approach, assuming we are selecting two topics in using comparative approach, one of the two might have limited data available to compare the two together. So that might be one of the limitations of comparative approach. And thirdly, difficulty in selecting comparable cases. In using comparative approach, it might be a little bit difficult in selecting cases in which we want to use comparative approach to compare. So, exploring thematic approaches in gender, economics, and in politics. So, as we all know, the definition for thematic approach, which is focusing on a particular thing, like in gender, it might be women history, how women are not allowed to participate in maybe political aspects. And it might be feminism, or it might be masculinity, how masculine gender is being almost placed over second gender. So moving on to the thematic approach in exploring economics. So exploring thematic issues in economics offers a more engaging and relevant understanding of economic ideas and their impacts, focusing on recurring themes and concepts across different periods. So in this, we have some key themes in economic history that are significant, like economic system. It might be capitalism, it might be socialism, it might be communalism or feudalism, and then also industrialization and technology. In economics, the theme might be on the industrialization or technology, like you can say the industrial revolution of 1760 in Britain. I can say that as a thematic approach in economics, and with globalization of the economic system worldwide. So moving on to the thematic approach on politics. Thematic approach in politics histories allows historians to analyze patterns, connections, and transformation in political system across different periods of ages. And there are some key themes like one, war and diplomacy. In using thematic approach, we can use how several wars and how diplomacy are being used globally. And secondly, political system and institution. Political system and institution which examine development and evolution of different political systems. It might be monarchy, it might be democratic, it might be military rule, and other system of government. And lastly, power and authority. Power and authority investigates the way in which powers and authority are exercised and maintained and challenged throughout history. So the second to last subtopic is comparative method in African history.
Okay.
In discussing comparative method in African history, you can say the colonial kingdoms, because throughout Africa, there are some key things in African history, such as current laws and empires that compares development and organization and impact of the colonial kingdoms in each different part of Africa, because they all have different types of colonial system in history. Secondly, colonialism and imperialism. In comparing how we are being colonized in West Africa and the North Africa, South Africa, East Africa is totally different from each other, which can be compared. And thirdly, nationalism and decolonization. Nationalism, which is the movement of trying to break the shackles of imperialism. How we can compare them to get how we can compare together, like how the nationalism movement was being used in East Africa, North Africa, South Africa, and West Africa. And lastly is the culture and religion. In comparing the comparative method of African history, the cultures and religions can be compared throughout the whole continent. And lastly is the comparative analysis of historical events across regions. Number one is the state formation and political structure. According to the subtopic, in comparing the historical events across the regions, which the four regions are north, south, and east, the state formation and the political structure. You can see in West Africa, the political structure is totally different from the north. I think most of the countries in the north, the political system is most of them is based on monarchy. Unlike the other regions in West and East Africa, Southern Africa. Then the trade and economic system. According to the subtopic, is trying to let us know the historical events across the regions. And I think in West Africa, the trade and economic system. Let me look at the trade. The trade of between West Africa and North Africa, the trans-Saharan trade. And I think in Southern Africa, their trade was mostly with Europeans, in which they trade with cattle and cattle skin. With I think the Dutch East India Company back then. And in the Eastern Africa, their trade system was with, I think, the Indian Ocean. And lastly, the colonial encounters. How the four regions, how we encounter the colonial masters is totally different. When we try to compare them, how we encounter them in West Africa, even in West Africa, even within Nigeria, how the Igbos, the Hausas and Yoruba, how we responded to the colonial masters, that was totally different. In which some of the northern part of Africa, I think they tried to find them, but not because of their military strength, which is very low to the Europeans.
Are you satisfied?
Sir?
Are you satisfied? You can't tell. No, you see, we can tell you that we are not, but you have to be satisfied with what you have presented and you have done your best. It's very important. If you are not, then there's a problem. All right? Like I said, we're not here to make you feel little or make you feel as if you have done something which is not good enough. No. Do you have comments for him? Do you have suggestions?
Yes, sir. What I wanted to ask the other time, when you mentioned under the limitation of cultural contextual differences, where you had told him that he chose his topic, not possibly box himself.
It's a corner.
Yes, sir. So, my question was that did that mean that the contextual differences as he explained would not be applicable to anybody's choice of topic
I don't understand.
in the way that he had described,
Yeah.
that he had the contextual, that part of the limitation
Is that you can't get the total context of an event.
of an event,
Yeah.
and you had told him that, look, if you chose your topic,
It's on
you
your
cannot
own.
possibly
Your
box
own.
yourself. It's your own, you cannot possibly. So that means
And
that
in any case, you are not supposed to know everything anyway. It's not meant to do everything. So why should you regard it as yeah?
as a limitation.
Because by its nature, it's supposed to be a focused study on a particular thing. But you can also have, what do you call it, ancillary disciplines contributing to it. So sociology, anthropology, archaeology, they can all help you to amplify that particular theme. Right? It was not in the context of thematic, not comparative. Yeah. So, in fact, thematic can even help you to have a deeper understanding of a particular issue better than the other straightforward narrations. Because at the end of the day, you have the advantage of focusing on one theme from different perspectives. So, like I said, don't limit yourself and say, oh, it's too narrow. It's focused, but not narrow. It's focused on a particular thing. It depends on whether you want to look at it as half full or as half empty. It's your choice. So, I don't have any problem with the Civil War. Who is the Civil War? You are the Civil War writer. And you are the one on the structure. Is that what you are doing for your thesis? I want to work on the Civil War for your thesis. Why? You are afraid.
I need difficulty in getting particular message. Nights. So I'm thinking of
a particular person.
Is there only one person that fought the war?
I wanted to interview this man. He fought in war, but he's a grandpa to one of our church members. So when I went to the house, I was gone back to the war. I need to be south. So it was part of the civilian's house. That's why I asked.
Was I the one you wanted to interview?
Sir,
Is that the one you wanted to interview?
yes, sir. So that's why I had to change that. That's all. Someone to that. No, that's why I changed my interview.
You see, there is, I don't know whether you know anything about the individual and the collective in history. The role of the big man in history. Does it define just give me a moment. Hello? More class for teaching. I'll be late to the church, but I'll come. But my late here. Ah, okay. Okay. No, I'm late, but I have a class I will finish after 5. Autocracy. No. Yes. Okay. So where are we? Why do you want to talk on me? What did I say last?
Even of big man.
The role of big man in history. Aha. So when you are looking at focusing, sometimes do you write the history from the perspective of the big man, the warrior, Ogedengbe? Can you write the history of that epoch without that person? But does it make the history of that society? So it rubs on each other. You need the big man to understand certain things. So you want to write a version of Gumola, Ogedengbe of Elisha, Fabumi of these are all individuals that impacted their society. But they impacted the society in the context of the society that embraced them. You cannot be the lone big man. You're a big man because people accepted you as a big man. Yeah. So the role of the big man in this is also very important. I don't know how we got to that issue, but the issue of the big man. And for a thematic history, if you choose to make the big man your theme, even then, you still have to understand the circumstances around him that made him to assume leadership of society. What were the objective realities that made Ogedengbe to become the folk hero in the society? Was it fighting for some people? Was it defending the town? Was it defending the community? So the man just didn't arise to say, I want to become, no, there is a need for the man to emerge in society. These are, I don't mean matters for them, but these are, the big man is. Yeah?
You're talking about selecting the proper.
Yeah, the proper thing, yeah. So even when you pick an individual, that person is functioning in the context of the larger society. I don't know whether it will be part of our study next semester or on philosophy of history. I'm not sure it's going to be. We're going to have advanced philosophy of history together. So get ready. And then there is a problem of African historiography. That one you're going to do all the work on your own. I'll just be listening and enjoy myself. So I'll try to limit the topics to 10 so that you just do two. Yeah. If you expect me to, you see, the beauty of African historiography is that it equips you to become the historian. So the first paper I published was my paper in the historiography class, which I presented in the class on oral tradition as a method, as what do you call it? The early form of history is to reciting the society. So, I know if you want to take it.
Do you have a link to that paper?
The paper, I can't even.
The paper you published.
Yeah, it was published in Brazil. Let me see. Let me see.
You can download it.
No, it's not a book, it's an article.
It's an article.
But remember, I wrote it as an MA student, not as a lecturer. I mean, I was a graduate assistant, but I was an MA student. So as a GA, so I wasn't better than you at that time. It was at this stage of my study that I wrote it. So I presented in the class. They made their corrections, they made their suggestions. I went back to correct, wrote it up, and forwarded it to the journal. And it was published. It,
Make a good reference.
let me see if I can even get it for you. Because I know do I have it here? I'm not sure it's part of my. Hmm. I will try to get the journal when I get to the house. But I'm not sure I list it even on my CV anymore.
So spare time, sir. Say you do have it.
Spare time, which I don't have.
You hardly have.
Which I don't have. I've not even done what I came to do in the office today, apart from this your class. And it's already 5. Okay, so any questions, comments? Are you ready for us next week? Eh? By God's grace. Is it by God's grace or have you done the work? Eh? You're on it. Yeah, she'll be ready. What do you call it? Time constraint as a way of making people to do what they have to do. Once the date is near, I know you'll get it. Okay, so let's conclude. Remember that whatever approach you take, look at the larger picture of what you are doing. Your method is not limited to a particular, I'm using quantitative method, or I'm using qualitative method, or I'm using thematic. No. You should be able to take a bit from each, to get things done. Our thematic approach is good. It takes you away from being a narrative historian, a straightforward Obaku story. I know that. Yeah. The problem is many people are afraid of the rigorous nature of thematic history. Even comparative history is also rigorous. Many people are afraid of it, so they prefer the straightforward introduction of Christianity in Ijesha land, 1950 to 2000. The Methodists came in 1950, the Anglican came in 1951, CAC started in 1948 for Mikende Arakeji. It's easy to get that, to go that route. But when you begin to engage that, why did they come first? Oh, why did it take them so long to move from CMS in Lagos to Ilesha Grammar School? All those, there are issues that are more rigorous than straightforward narration. Well, whichever one, just enjoy yourself.
Yes, but that approach also,
Yeah.
there's also been that in answering such questions of, say, why,
Yeah.
it will be subjected to norms, biases.
Well, interpretation is a matter of bias. History is interpretative. Haven't you said it before?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
History is interpretive. Your interpretation is not necessarily my interpretation. And I'm sure I must have mentioned to you that it's possible for me to give you a list of sources and you write different things.
Yes.
It's possible. If you write the same thing, then somebody copy the other one.
Yes.
You know the story of the boy that went to school and said, my dog. And the teacher said, you copied the essay of your brother. I said, you are writing the same dog. They write an essay on my dog. So one copy the essay of the brother. And then the teacher said, your essay reads so like that of your brother. I said, we are writing the same dog. So, at the end of the day, let's try to do something different. So, any other question? I think we have exhausted our time. We went more than 2 hours. Next week, Wednesday first, then Thursday. So 2 days. Thursday, 12 noon. Okay. 12 p.m. Yeah, 12 noon. But what time do you want us to be doing this class? This one, I can't be. Latest I must close by 4:30 if we're going to be having it at this time. Why? Because I have a program at 5. I could do it when I was out of the country. Not
So you're not going to want that.
now when I'm here. So I already got a call from my senior pastor that she's not going to be there on time. So you have to, and I was telling her that I'm also in the class. So
We can just move forward for 30 minutes.
can you?
Yes, sir. Because we finish, normally we take our SO, we will finish an hour before.
Okay.
So if we finished by 2 o'clock.
You can start at 2:30. Excellent. No problem.
No, it's next class physically is asking.
Is that next class?
Next
Prepare for online, no?
online.
Because it's easier for me to do online.
Yes.
And I think it's even better for students because you can join from anywhere you want. This guy is better.
You want to be same plus space.
Well, as long as I'm around, you don't have any problem. But it means I'll be carrying my projector to the class every
Let's do
time.
our online, sir. Let's take the online. You are good.
So that
I mean, is it not? Are you not better with online?
Because the probe is
Okay.
It's not losing.
Me too, I don't mind. Me too, I don't mind.
Class for the next semester.
What is your conclusion? You want me in the class?
I mean, it pays me better to do online.
Eh? Is it not the same method you are complaining about that I use?
Even since we have been with it, so.
Mr. Mo, talk now,
Mr.
or
Mo,
whatever I hold your breath.